So we're going to go ahead and start with some introductions. So I'm going to call your name for the panelists, and then you get to do little mini elevator speech of who you are. Make sure you're tooting your own horn. I don't want to have to do it. I will. It's better if you do. Okay, so first up, we are going to go with Cindi, just because you're top in my corner.
Well, hi, everyone. Thanks for having me be part of this. And I was just saying, I miss all of the EPEW crew. I made some good friends and made some fantastic memories, and I can't wait to be in person and return to this wonderful experience. So I'm going into, I think, my 25th year of teaching. I've kind of lost track along the way. I teach elementary, but I've taught at all grade levels. I've also taught and dabbled with higher ed. And we spent the majority of last year as distance learning. And I finally got the opportunity to go in person well after spring break, which was challenging in itself. So we will be in person starting in the fall, and we'll see how long that lasts. But I'm looking forward to kind of moving away from remote learning and hybrid and back to in-person learning. So that's me.
Yes, thank you, Cindi. And Crystal.
Hello, I'm Crystal Williams. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. And I have been, I'm like Cindi, I can't remember half the time, but I believe I've been 10 years. And I'm so excited to be here. I teach in a small school district right outside of Memphis. And we were face-to-face the entire year. We did have students that were virtual, but we just provided work for them pretty much, and as a whole district. And that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Mark, you're up, sir.
Thank you. I'm Mark Damiani, physical education teacher, K through 8. Been teaching for about 25 years. Been coming to EPEW all that time. Probably biggest feather in my cap was to be a one-time keynote speaker at EPEW. That was a really wonderful thing to experience, because I kind of got birthed there as a teacher and learned my craft there, and I got to give back at after about 20 years. So yeah, that's me. Thanks.
And that was a great keynote too, by the way, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin, you're up.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin McGrath. I teach in Alexandria, Virginia, entering my 19th year, most in elementary, but I've taught the other levels as well. I'm the creator of Adopt a Gym, nonprofit developed to send equipment to schools in need. And this is my first EPEW experience, but a lot of wonderful things I've heard about it. I would have experienced a lot more, but I literally moved into this new home in the last 2 days. So I haven't been able to do anything PE related until this very moment. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Bo, you're up.
All right. Bo Phillips here from Illinois. Part of a fun group with Kelly Zerby and Cindi Cortinas. What? Oh, hello. Been teaching 18 years, so I'll be entering my 19th year. We were remote through end of January, went to hybrid, end of March, finally in person, but lots of restrictions, almost no equipment, a lot of just spatial restrictions. So I'm looking forward to just going back to being a PE teacher with no restrictions and letting my creativity and all the ideas that I've gained over the last year and a half loose. So
nice.
Thank you to many of the people on this panel for sharing in the last year and a half.
Awesome. Thanks, Bo. Kyle.
Hi, my name is Kyle Bragg. I do elementary PE in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm the advocacy chair for our state association. I'm on the SHAPE Physical Activity Council, and we were remote for 2 months, and then the rest of the year we were in person. But yeah, I'm excited to get to EPW next year if I can in person, because I have not experienced yet. But there's some amazing people around here that I look forward to collaborating with in the future.
Okay, I shouldn't have to brag. Come on, Kyle.
Oh, Crystal didn't do it, so I'm not doing it.
Oh, Crystal, didn't you say it? Crystal. Okay, Kyle, go first, then we'll go back to Crystal.
Okay, I was named National PE Teacher of the Year this past year, which was really exciting.
Thank you. Crystal, brag about yourself. Don't make me do it.
I was Southern District Elementary PE Teacher of the Year.
Thank you. Come on, I told you guys to brag about yourself, not make me do it for you. Okay, Zerby.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Zerby. I'm from Illinois. I'm going into year 23 of teaching. I know I look a lot younger than that. I do a lot of things for Illinois IAFERD PE Association, lots of presentations, and I had the distinct honor of presenting at EPEW. I think it was 2 or 3 summers ago. I got to wear a purple Hawaiian shirt quite often, and it was a wonderful, wonderful time. So I can't stay very long today, but I'm just so happy to be here.
Keller, did you win an award?
Yes.
What was
I am the 2021 Elementary PE Teacher of the Year for Illinois.
What?
Thank you. Come on, I tell you to brag about yourself so I don't have to like make him pull teeth here.
Toot, toot. How's that?
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start off on this discussion. So if you are not, did I miss any panelists, by the way? Because everyone's kind of mixed in my screen. I don't think I did I? Sweet. Okay, so as the discussion goes, if you are not a panelist but have a question, please unmute and ask. Okay, we have some questions as ideas, but if this conversation grows organically, it will be much more beneficial for everyone involved, including the panelists and for me, because I get to sit here and hear everything. So if you guys have better questions, you say them, please, or you can put them into the chat, whatever. Either way works great. But we're going to start off with kind of like this big question of what are some of the biggest takeaways that you experienced during the distance learning that you can take into either in-person or hybrid in the fall. Okay, so that's going to be the first question we're talking about. So Kelly, you get to be up first.
Okay, so we here in my district in Illinois, we didn't see kids in person until February. So we were all online the whole time. And then in February, little globs of kids came back and we still didn't see everybody in person. So I was parallel teaching, as I called it. I had kids in person and kids on the screen at the same time doing two different activities. It was chaos. What I learned from that was overall the relationships that I was able to make with the kids, even when they were at home, because they were so excited to see me and they wanted to show me things at home, albeit some things inappropriate, right? But I really had a great time. Like I had a student who has a pet squirrel. I wouldn't have known any of that about that guy, and or the 5th grade kid who has to babysit 3 younger siblings. So I learned a lot about that, and it made me realize that in the future, I want to spend a little bit more time like having one-on-one conversations with my kids, which for me, I have daily PE, which is such a wonderful privilege, but I always feel like I'm rushing anyway, still like you guys would. But so I'm thinking maybe some sort of like little consultation that I can do, like stations, and just have a little something where I can just talk to each kid one-on-one, one at a time, just to get feelers for them. So I think that was my biggest takeaway for the year.
I love that. Who knew pet squirrel? I like that. Okay, did anyone else want to chime in before I call on someone else?
Sure, I'll go ahead and chime in.
Thank you.
What I learned was, I had a lot of kids that are shy, are anxious, they're like in shells all the time in the gym, and you really just kind of have to get it out of them. Like it would always be at recess time when I could get them a little more isolated and I'd find out some more about them. But I found out so many kids are more confident when it's just them. If they're sharing something with me on Seesaw or Flipgrid, I mean, I had kids come out of like these personalities I never knew existed. And they were just so confident. And they wouldn't stop talking. I'd tell them like, you have 5 minutes to finish like what you're trying to share with me. And they would go over their time. So it was really great to see a lot of kids show me a new side of them. And so now I just have to find a way to, kind of mold that into how our teaching and their showing of their understanding of a skill or a concept can be done outside of class time a little bit differently. And I can still highlight their skills and say, hey, are you okay if we share this? And they were really always excited, like, to just share them as a demonstration or an example. But if I did that in person, they would never want to stand up in front of the whole school and do it. If it was like a little video or they felt comfortable how they had control of it. So it was really great to see a lot of kids kind of come out of shells in that sense.
Hey, I'm going to continue on with the Illinois representation here if I can. One thing that was really awesome that came out of the remote learning or distance learning, whatever you call it, was the amount of advocacy that came forward for our program, because so many parents were home or their caretakers. They were able to witness firsthand what was being taught to their children, and that it wasn't just about, rolling a ball out and playing dodgeball. Like there was a lot of connected skill related themes and different things that I don't think many people are aware of what we do in our classrooms. And so I found it pretty rewarding to have parents and caretakers and family members pop in and do the workouts with us, do the activities with us, or contact me separately and say, hey, you did a really nice job, So that was one positive thing. I know that's not what we're really talking about, but it was something that I learned about this past year. And like, we don't always realize what kind of impact we make. And this was an awesome opportunity to have parents see what we do firsthand.
Yeah, so I want to build off what both Kelly and Cindi just said there. So the whole advocacy piece combined with the getting to know your students, right? How can we move that forward into next year? Or did you guys find any ways? Like, I know Kelly, you said you wanted to kind of build that one-on-one, and Cindi, you were saying how like you get to have that with the parents involved. Is there a way to continue those two like absolute golden things we got in digital world, in the virtual world, to carry that over for the fall?
I have something on that.
Go for it.
Because I was face-to-face the entire year, but our parents at the beginning, they were not able to come in. So one thing that I did do was I contacted parents on Seesaw and I asked them, hey, could you send videos in of you and your students performing exercises for our warm-up? So I created a warm-up for our parents. Another thing that I like to do on a normal year when they can come in is, and I got this from, name slipping my mind right now, but is to bring your parents to PE. That is, yes, thank you, Will Potter. I don't know where it just escaped my brain, but yes, I love to bring the parents to PE. They really get to see a true lesson. I mean, I know everybody loves field day, but this kills field day to me. Like it's the best day ever. I also send a lot of notes home to parents, letting them know when students did well. And another thing that I got from Will is I always have done a newsletter, but I would send a video within the newsletter of the students telling the parents what we learned, their favorite activities, and why it was their favorite activity. And they love that. Parents were messaging me left and right with that.
Yes. Any ideas on how to actually build not just the communication with the parents, like Crystal was saying, but that communication in the classroom with those students? Like, how do we carve out that one-on-one time? How can we set up activities?
I'll take that. One of the things I do, Jess, and I've always done is on occasions, I'll do a walk and talk. So I often have access to the track at the high school. So sometimes I'll take the kids over for a walk and talk, and pretty quickly they realize what that is, and it's built into their lives. And they get to partner up with kids that they might not normally, hang out with, like at lunch or recess, or try to get in a team or tribe with. And I might provide some prompts, a couple questions, might not. Let them walk around the track and talk about things, and then we shift to different people. And then I cruise a little faster and eavesdrop a little bit and join in a little bit here and there. And I always take kids aside to partner up with them and check in. And in my case, I teach K through 8. So I get these little guys when they're 4 or 5 years old. I graduate them out, give the commencement speech when they're 14. I really get to know these kids, and I'm the only teacher on campus that does, probably like many of you. And the other thing too, just to flesh it out a little bit, is I have the time, and I work in the town where I live. I have the time to go see these kids, do their karate tests, on a Saturday, or go to their after school basketball game, or their an older brother's football game at the high school that was probably my student. Those types of things where, it's community. I work in the town where I live, and I'm out there in the community and build it up like that.
Awesome. Anyone else want to jump in on that question? Otherwise, I got another one. Okay. So the next question I want to pose to everybody to the panel is so keeping all these in mind that we talked about, like the advocacy, connecting with parents, and making sure you got that one-on-one with the students, what are some beginning of the year tips that you would have, or some of your favorites to start the year off in order to build that climate in your classroom or your program?
I know one thing I enjoy doing every year is like the handshake warm-ups. We found some really cool ones online and created videos. The dab handshake and different things. And then instead of just doing that with different partners, in the beginning, we have them do it to somebody else. And then we can make it into like a tag game where they have to do a dab handshake and then do it with us and say their names. So especially for new students, we're catching up on names, but also have them return back to old partners and add in a favorite as well. So it's like, all right, go to your dab partner and tell them what their favorite ice cream was, remembering that you remembered it, and that just makes you feel a little bit more special when you realize not only when you speak, other people are actually listening to you and remembering important things about you, and it builds connection between them and of course with us as well.
Just build off that real quick. I love that he said, get the names. Obviously, if you're saying, hey, kid in the blue, they're not going to feel very special. So getting the names first and foremost, playing a game, name tag. If they get tagged, they come up to you, tell you your name. Then after a while, you'll get it and you'll try to guess that. And once you guess that, they'll get really excited. But maybe they can tell you on the second round one thing, have a prompt on the board, and they can tell you something their favorite topping or whatever on a pizza. So names and just getting them to get out of their comfort zone a little bit by sharing a little bit about themselves in a comfortable way. And I think that will really set the tone for the rest of the year.
I like to do a lot of the partner challenges as well. And then I was thinking Kelly Zerby has a really good 2x2 fitness activity where they're forced to work with different people. They can't repeat a challenge with the same person. So it forces them to work outside their comfort zone and meeting new people within their class, but it's also working on different skills within our class, and they're having to sign off on it. But I also like for a whole group or whole class and then small group is the dice breakers. And that's a really good talking point one. And like Mark, you were saying, walk and talk. I would do that as well. So I would have them move around and talk about something. And then when the music stopped, they would have to go to that station and they would do the dice breaker. So I did that with my older students this past year when we went back in person, and it was just amazing how much they did not want to do anything after being used to being remote. So I had to kind of scratch my head and figure out what the heck I was going to do to get them engaged. And so I did these dice breaker games. And instead of forcing them to do some of the skills or fitness related things, because they're so burnt out on that, I did a lot of, walking and talking and doing different kinds of challenges that they didn't feel embarrassed to do. And so that kind of also engages, small groups, but then we would talk about it as a whole too. So once the music stopped, I would have different people, raise their hand and share what they and their partner were talking about.
Yeah, I do the dice breakers. I love all that stuff. I want to try to modify Ben Lander's crazy card challenge into that same mentality of like, you get a card and, go ask 3 people what was their favorite place they went this summer and stuff like that. So it's just the same concept, but not necessarily like, let's complete this task as a group. We may not know these students quite yet because we integrate by 3 or 4 homerooms. So it's going to be taking that challenge, but more it's to meet each other, to connect, to meet new students. So I'm looking forward to that.
I love all that stuff. And I especially love the handshake, which I learned all that from Chip Candy. One of the ones, Lisa Fogg had a camp want to learn how, which took as long as it took. It could take 3 days or 3 weeks where integrating equipment, starting with no equipment at all, and then kind of earning the rights to use equipment. And the game 100, where you spin a big jump rope and you don't really clue the kids on what they're trying to achieve except to get to the number 100. And of course, all they have to do is go under the rope each one without missing, no two people going in, make it whatever you want, but they get as high as they can. And it starts that team building accomplishment stuff with, just a rope.
So in case you guys didn't notice, in the chat, Kelly and Kyle have dropped some links. If you're unable to access them or are unable to open them for whatever reason, these links will get added to our resource document that will go out at the end of the workshop. I know the workshop ends today. It probably won't go out until tomorrow night to give us a chance of making sure all of the resources are actually all compiled in that one spot. So yeah, if you guys have anything else to share, even if you're not on the panel, have resources you want to share, drop them in, and we can make sure to spread those out to anyone, which would be awesome.
Jess?
Okay. Yes, Mark.
I know I'm talking a lot, but this one is a great one that, not the first few days, but after the kids have gotten to know each other a little bit, I learned this one from Steve Reifman, which is the construction paper red heart that you tape on the back of your students. Each one gets one on their back and they get a pin. And they go around and they write something kind or appreciative or complimentary on the back of the person, and it's fairly anonymous because you're behind them, and then afterwards they get to share their hearts. So it's a little further into the year, but it's a wonderful activity.
That one is super powerful. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so now keeping in mind like all those things we do, right? So I know there's going to be several people coming in, and I know we have a couple in here now that I've got to be all ready during the workshop. Teachers that are new to elementary that are coming now from a different lens, whether it be from the high school realm, from the middle school realm, from adapted realm, or from the classroom. What are some of those key things that you recommend these teachers keep in mind now coming into elementary phys ed from those different lenses that they may have had before? Anyone have any ideas on this one?
I'll say briefly, like you'll have to model a lot more procedural things. You'll have to model how to get along, like give examples, sportsmanship, like all these things that they probably know at the middle school and high school already, but you have to practice them, role model them, and praise them, I think, too. Things that are so simple that we take for granted, maybe like letting someone join your team or something, and practice pulling people in, things like that, because that will make a big difference for the rest of the year. But those are things you probably don't need to practice as much, maybe in middle school, maybe you do in high school, I don't know, but elementary school, especially younger kids, don't fully grasp that until you teach that. And you can't assume they're getting taught that at home because they often don't.
Yeah, just a small thing that I learned quite early was that sarcasm is completely lost at the elementary level. There's definitely ways of being humorous, but sarcasm, not only is it lost, but it could be felt or received as like a negative way. So I just basically eliminated sarcasm from my ways of trying to be funny, and I'm sure it helped. And don't presume they know anything, because be very explicit with your directions, and if you see things that aren't going the way you planned them, it's likely your instruction and not their listening, which is a hard thing to tell yourself. But when you see like many people doing things not the way you explain them, it's probably because your explanations weren't as clear or as detailed as they needed to be. So more detailed is actually better.
And I would say when you're giving those details, slow down. Like I tend to just, because I'm putting so much into one lesson sometimes for that week, just sometimes less is more. Go slow. And don't assume a lot of things, but don't assume kids can always hear you. Like stop yourself after like a minute and just be like, everybody still hearing me? Like just check in with them, because the lower the grades go, that attention span is all over the place. So there's kids that are great listeners without looking at you, but not many. That's not a lot of them. So just constantly check in, get those, those hand gestures, those thumbs up, whatever it is. All your funny little quirky sayings, but just repetition and go slow, I would say.
And do a lot of check for understandings, ask specific questions, not ones that are yes or no responses. Ask questions where they're repeating the answers to you, because that gives you a really good way of checking for their understanding. And if they're not able to repeat to you what they're supposed to do, then you know that it's your instruction and you need to repeat it. So try to stay away from the yes or no questions. You know,
If you ever
ask-
watch one of Ben Lander's lessons that he shares on his website, you'll see how well he goes through it, just to make sure they know the 5 expectations or the 3 rules, whatever it is. He does a really good job of that, and he has them tight near him. They're not scattered. Like it's good. So Ben's a good one to check out on his website.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Three rules, man. I mean, if your games are taking 5 minutes to explain, it's too long. A minute, under a minute to explain a game. A couple of rules. Get small, get down on their level if they're real little kids. You know, I'm 6 foot, got to get low and don't have anything in your hands. You know, have the kids model with the equipment. Not if you're 225, don't have a bat in your hand while you're talking to a little kid. Doesn't work.
I agree. I'm with I also like, we start out with a little small part, they do that, then we add on to it. That way your instructions are short. And then I always have a student demonstrate with me. So then students, because it seems like when I do it, it's one way, but when the kid does it, all of a sudden everybody understands. So, and then I like to fill in the blank. I say, we were going to do what? What's your first rule? And then they reply back to me.
And I know I'm not normally answering questions. I'm going to say one thing here. I know also there are several teachers now that are adding kinder into their classes, which they have not in the past. Number one thing to remember about kinders, like they're my babies, they're my favorites by far, is that kindergartners are about 60 months old. That's it. Kindergartners are 60 months old for the most part. So when you keep that in mind, your expectations of a 60-month-old oftentimes is not the same as for a 5-year-old, right? Which is literally the same thing. But if you keep it in mind of like 60 months, they've only been on this earth, they have 60 months worth of life experiences, which is not a lot. So to keep in mind and give grace with littles, especially, like they're not going to know a lot at 60 months. They just don't have the experience to draw on. So to keep that in mind of like, they don't have the tool belt at all that most people think of as school-age children. They don't know how to be students yet. They barely know how to be themselves. They can't even control where their bodies are half the time. So 60 months old is like not a lot you got to draw on there. So that was my 2 cents on that one. Okay, before we move on with our questions, did anyone else have any questions they'd like to pose to the panel? Anything that like you're like, okay, going into next year, I want more information on this, or I need help with coming up with this kind of stuff, anything like that before I continue on with our questions? No? Okay. So next thing I'd like to touch on now is we've kind of gotten ideas of some of these lessons and all this other stuff. Is there any way when you're looking at assessment type, okay, any assessment type that is like your go-to, and we're not taught, like assessment in itself is this huge topic, right? For panelists, I want you to think of like a quick one thing. If you've got one thing that you would like to share, this gold nugget that you've learned over your years of experience, that's in the realm of assessment, where again, this is a whole thing. We're doing like little gold nugget type of things here.
This or that. If we're talking elementary kids, you know, especially the littler ones, this or that, where if you like this or you like that, and you have provided them with the modes of locomotion, you know, hopping, skipping, jumping, leaping type of stuff, where they go from one end of a basketball court to another, or whatever you've got available, your field, whatever. And every movement, you can assess all your little kids that way really quickly, and are having a great time.
And you get to learn more about them.
I've gotten really into Plagnets. They're very good for just, you know, yes or no questions or multiple choice, but I've created some assessments related to multiple attempts, and then out of that many attempts, if you got 1 through 3 accurate, you're an A, and 4 through 6 and so forth. And by the end of a lesson, if you have 20 kids and 18 of them are level 4, then you may not have to do the next lesson. You may be able to move on. But if the same note, you think you're on your last day of a certain thing, and all of your kids are in that 1, 2, and and just very few in the 4, you may want to add another day to it. Or at the same note, if you're doing a lesson and you notice all your kids are staying in the 1s and 2s, you may need to adjust your lesson for the later classes. And it's a really good way of looking at your own instruction to see if it's going the way you intended it as well. Plagnets are awesome.
On my assessments, I have an iPad, so I quickly hold my camera up, and as they're going through it, so I can and they're short assessments, so I can go quickly back and look at their assessment. Also, I like for it to be where I can immediately, because my students like to ask what's going on, so I have them assess at the same time. And one other key thing is do the formative assessments as you go, because if you do a pre-test and you wait to the end, then you're like, oh, I hope they're showing growth. No, check to make sure they're showing growth on the way.
Yeah, coaches, is that the one where it kind of does the loop and then they come back out and get to watch themselves? Yeah.
So another one like that is BAM video delay is the one I use for that one. Yeah.
I think that's the one I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I'll set up stations every now and then, and what I'll do is depending on the skill, and I'll have various skills. So there is some choice involved. That's always good for them. And so maybe there's a soccer kicking station, but there's like 3 levels of difficulty, like to knock over a bowling pin, to hit a target in the goal that's up top, or whatever. But they get a choice, so it's not the kids that are really competitive aren't going to be like, oh, I just got to score a goal. They're not going to give you that full effort. So having some different levels of difficulty, but choice for them, and then I can walk around, and whether I'm filming or marking it down, you're going to get a good effort level from that and a good accurate assessment.
One thing I want to add for the Plagnets, if you end up using them, I found that if you put the QR code on one side and the not yet getting there, got it wows on the other side, it's a lot better to get accurate results, because if you are about to put your not yet or getting there up and you see everyone's a got it or wow, you're just going to turn it to got it or wow, so you're not the guy, but you can do it so one side has your not yet getting there, got it wow, and the other side just has the QR code itself with a number. And when you place it down, no one knows what level you're on, which allows you to feel a lot more comfortable giving your true results.
Yes. Anyone else have anything to add for that assessment piece one? Okay. So if you need to go, it's been the 45 minutes. If you need to go, you can. We're going to continue the conversation on a little bit longer. So panelists, if you need to take off, let me know that you're good to go. We'd love having you here. We are going to ask a few more questions. Those you want to stay on, feel free. So looking at next year, I know here in California, like in my school district next year, I am still going to be required, at least in my understanding, who knows actually what it's going to look like, right? My understanding is so far I've been told that if we are in person, we will still have to be socially distanced. There's a chance I will still have to have cohorts and no equipment. Okay, so like all of these different things for next year, right? I don't think anyone actually knows for sure what the fall is going to look like when we come in. Do any of you have any ideas or ways that you found so far that we're teaching in person at all, of any tricks that you found or super ideas of either how to deal with cohorts with no equipment or socially distant stuff in particular? Because again, we've got no idea what next year is going to look like, but some of you have been teaching in person, and I want those ideas.
I was face-to-face the entire year, and we did not use equipment. I think it was into March. So no equipment the whole time. And I had units. I actually did units. I started with a team building unit. Would have never thought I would have been able to do that. But I used a lot of where they had to use verbal skills, which we need to improve on. So they had to direct each other and learn how to communicate. I did the robotics lab. I did the one, it's like simple machines where they had to create the machines. That was probably my favorite one. So as a whole group, the other class groups had to guess the machine that they were creating. So it was a lot of fun. We did dance, which people see me dance all the time, but that was my first time doing a dance unit. We did balance unit. And I actually have a whole entire list of units on Mark and Becky's website that you can totally check out, and I will go look for it and put it in the link. But so all the units on there, I hadn't updated it in a while, and I did do some more, and if people want more information, I can totally share those ideas with anybody.
Yeah, so those of you that are not familiar with the Fulmer's website, I'll drop it into the chat here in a second. It is the Chromebooks for Health and PE. And I'll put the link in there, but it has been a huge savior to, oh, thank you, Bo. Good job, buddy. It has been a wealth of resources. And I know quite a few people on here have added to that. So yeah, anyone else have anything they want to add to that one? Rhonda, let's hear it.
I had kids from the beginning in person, and we started off literally doing spatial awareness, running, chasing, all those kinds of games without touch. And then after a while, I was able to break down my equipment so I had enough for the kids to have one piece of equipment per activity. So we did Frisbee golf. So everybody had their own Frisbee. They weren't throwing and catching to each other, but they could throw to a target. We did foot golf. So we used a soccer ball to kick and roll onto a jersey. So it was like they were kicking it into the hole. And so for several months, we were doing that. And then in between every class, I had a wonderful auntie who donated a bit of money so that I could get one of those, the static sprayers that the whole, chemical wraps around everything. And so between that and then our general use, I literally taught and cleaned and taught and cleaned and taught and cleaned and taught all day long, every day. And then at some point I was so tired of that. I bought rubber gloves from the 99-cent store, and I had my kids wear gloves. And then towards the end of the year, we were able to, play tag games and touch and things like that. But I made them wear gloves. They washed their hands, they sanitized. We used that coming and going. And so we were able to be together. So PE was only the class that they were in their grade that came to PE one at a time. So we weren't mixing, and the same thing on the playground. So it progressed as the year went on. Even cup stacking was a bit of a nightmare for cleaning, but I did as many of my units as I could, as modified as I could. And the kids were so good, scoops and whatever we could do. We did everything. And luckily we had enough because it was just one class at a time. And if not, then we modified with whatever we could, but it was so good to have the kids.
Nice, thank you. Linda. Hold on, you're muted, Linda.
We came back to school in early November, end of October, and started out with no equipment and all the CDC rules, but I did yoga. That was something that I could do without kids touching each other, and chalk things on the blacktop. But once, and then the chalk, I bought enough chalk so that the kids chose one piece of chalk, they used it, they put it in a bin, and I sanitized those. But as far as equipment goes, what my colleague and I did was divide equipment up. And like I was teaching 3 different grade levels, and every class had a different piece of equipment. So I was teaching a lot of different activities during that day, but the kids kept their equipment for 2 weeks. And so they had their Frisbee or they had their ball or whatever they had. They took it back to their classroom, kept it in their classroom. They brought it back the next time we had PE. After 2 weeks, we sanitized and then started all over again with a different activity. Our school was really, really gracious and bought every kid a jump rope, a beanbag, and a playground ball, 8.5 inch. And so everybody had those pieces of equipment, so we were able to use those. So that's how we got through.
Sheila.
So we were in school the whole year and we had a lot of things going on, but I bought pool noodles during the summer and I cut them in half so that they would be able to be that far apart from each other. And we could play tag games like that because they weren't actually touching each other, but they were using the pool noodles. I labeled every kid's name on the pool noodle. Every class had their own little bag. It was great, but like Rhonda, we hand sanitized on the way in, on the way out. We sprayed every piece of equipment that anybody touched. but the kids were really great. They understood where they were supposed to be. And the other thing I did was I made 10 by 10 boxes on the floor. So they knew exactly where to sit. I put poly spots as they walked into the field house. So they stood, they're 6 feet apart as they were coming in. You know, we really were very intentional about making sure that they stayed apart, transitioning and in the class and transitioning out. The kids were fantastic, and it was so nice to be in school, but we had kids on the Zoom as well. So what I did was I did dance with everybody. So even the kids at home could do the dance with us in the classroom. And then we did like a this or that or a fitness activity. And then when it was time for us to do like a skill activity, the kids at home got to choose a different activity that I'd made for them. And so they did that while the students in class did another activity. So it was a lot of front work, but now I have it all. So you can always draw from that.
We did a couple lessons on like an underhand toss and striking an object with our hands. So the kids in person were able to use an implement that I had, and the kids at home had to kind of get creative with what they had, but their hand was perfectly acceptable. And so after a couple lessons of working on those skills, the kids in class, I had set up a, if you want to call it a golf course with hoops and boxes and laundry baskets and milk crates and whatnot. And then the kids at home at the same time got to set up their own. And I'd already pushed out the seesaw activity with them. They'd seen pictures of what I did in my house, just as an example. And then I took a little video of a tour of my house and showed them me hitting. And then I just kept on going back and forth. And, you know, it was like hours and hours of work for like 2 days, but it was like, I got such like good, like just activity from both groups at the same time. And, you know, every week wasn't like that, but that was one that just like really worked and made me feel good and just kept the spirits up. But, you know, you don't always need all the stuff that you have at home. And so I have kids that live in trailers and they made it work, and they were so excited to share that. Even if it was like really bad camera work, you know, they're not going to be directors, you know, that maybe someday, but not right now. But maybe there's some future Spielbergs and Tarantinos in there, I don't know. But yeah, just creativity basically is the bottom line.
Excellent. Okay, so I've got one last question for all the panelists that was not on the list. Okay, so my question I'm posing to you is, what is your favorite thing about teaching elementary phys ed? I want to end this on a high note because we are getting pushing on noon here. Okay, so what is your favorite thing about teaching elementary phys ed? And again, we're keeping them short and sweet. Okay, Cindi, I saw you unmuted. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, they love everything. I feel like they're not a hard audience to please. You could do the most ridiculous thing and they think it's the best thing since sliced bread. And you are their favorite of everything usually. So it's definitely a self-esteem booster, but I just love their, they have no inhibitions. They are who they are and they don't really care and they love everything. So it's a great place to start, especially if you want to start something new. There's no point of reference usually for them because you can start something new and they're very accepting of it. And like I said, I've taught at all grade levels and that's not always the case with all grade levels. So the littles are awesome. They're just awesome.
I'm gonna go next. Since I have my student teaching, my first thing I remember, I thought I wanted to teach high school. And I looked to my cooperating teacher and I told her, I said, man, they make you feel like a rock star. And they did. They always want to talk to you. And so in turn, I'll make them feel like rock stars every day. I make sure I let them know you are superstars, you are great. And they just love it. And they will brighten your day with those smiles and they're ready for PE. So that is why I love teaching elementary school.
When I was a kid, I'm almost 60. When I was a kid, there was no adult supervision if you were outside. You could go anywhere on your bicycle, or if you had a horse, you could meet up with kids and play games without parents. You could make up games, organize games, any neighborhood or wherever you went. And kids, at least where I live, they do not have that. So during PE, they get to play. They get to be kids. They get to play and have the best time of their whole day, 5 days a week. That's what I love about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna just piggyback that, and just like, you know, Terry said, learn to play, play to learn. And you know, they've got so much energy and passion, and And I mean, I'll never get sick of a kid saying, Mr. Phillips, look, Mr. Phillips, look, Mr. Phillips, watch, Mr. Phillips. You know, they want you to be part of that little part of play at that moment. And so they're so sad when they leave, and they're so excited when they come in. And then boom, next class. It's just constant. So I don't know how you can't live on that rush for a long time. So
Yeah, I got into the profession to make a positive impact on children, and I think it's incredible that I have a 6-year period to do that. And I think that in classroom, teachers get a really great view of a child at a certain point of their life, where we get to see the growth. For example, Billy in 3rd grade, their teacher thinks he's, completely out of sorts. And you can tell him, if you saw Billy in kindergarten, you have no idea how wonderfully Billy's doing right now. And I feel like having that extended period of time to see where they're at in that moment, because you know them so well from years prior, to actually impact them in that moment for what they specifically need, means you have the ability to impact them the best, in my opinion. So I have 6 years, and if they come in preschool, even longer, to make that impact on their lives. And I take that very seriously. So I love that.
I'll just say really quick, I like the beyond the physical skills that we can teach them, how to get along, that, just things that they're going to use for the rest of their lives, but they're so open-minded at this point that we can really make a big difference with that. I feel like sometimes when you get to high school, they're already kind of set in their ways, so you can lessen impact, I think. Not everyone, but you can really teach some important things, like how to make eye contact, for example, and like they'll get it and they just practice it. And then once they get to high school, they'll be ready. So beyond just the, kicking and throwing, we can really teach some important lifelong skills they're going to need with whatever job they're going to pursue in the future.
Yes, I love it. So I think all the panelists answered that one. Okay, so now we're just about done. Did anyone else have any final questions or comments at all before we fully wrap this up? Rhonda.
I just want to say thank you, because I think I pretty much lived my life through the lens of people like Bo Phillips and Kyle Bragg and Ben Landers, and all of you who are on YouTube and all of these websites that we had. If it weren't for you, I literally would have gone crazy, because it gave me a form of reference. It gave great ideas. Each week there was something fun and new, and you were my bread and water and wine all at one time. And I cannot thank you from the bottom of my heart. I mean, it brings me to tears, because you're my lifeblood. So thank you. Because I was on an island all by myself, one teacher. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, so certificate of attendance, I believe Linda has already dropped into the chat back then. So again, if you have any issues getting that will be going out in the email at the end of the conference as well, along with the resource doc. That everything that's been put into the chat so far of the resources, I will be adding into the resource document that you will have access to through an email at the end of the workshop. Again, give us like a day or so at least to get that together, because we still have a lot to do. And this recording will also be out on YouTube later as well. Again, give us some time on that. Other than that, I want to thank you guys, panelists. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for agreeing to be part of this with us. We very much appreciate all of your insight and wisdom that you've imparted with us today. And there you go. We have one last final social today, 3 o'clock Pacific time, with our bingo game that we'd love to have you come join us and be a part of as our final EPEW wrap up for 2021. And then we hope you can join us 2022 in person.
Thank you for attending the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. We're glad you were here.
Please follow us on our social media platforms. EPEW can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Please check out our website for links to more great sessions. Just go to epew-cp.weebly.com and click on the virtual EPEW 2021 tab at the top and scroll down.
EPEW 2021 Educators Assemble would not be possible without the support and dedication from the amazing EPEW committee. The committee has been hard at work for months preparing for this workshop. Thank you to Linda McGee, Barbara Grattan, Scott Wilson, Stephanie Sandino, Julie Miller, Jessica Monlux, Kayla Ailman, Shelby Lozano, Andrea Chavez, Scott Townsend, and Cindy Chase.
Thank you for attending EPEW, where our motto is, come to learn, leave as family.